In January of 2024, a maths teacher from Missouri was arrested by the Garden Ridge Police Department in Texas for having relations with a student. 26-year-old Haley and Nichelle Clifton Carmack and the unnamed male teen had been intimate during school hours at a learning facility in LaCay, Missouri. They were even reported to have used other students as lookouts during their trysts. The authorities launched an investigation after a classmate of the victim came forward to school staff and showed photos of the victim with scratches on his back. They were allegedly inflicted by Clifton Carmack as they had relations in the victim's driveway. The teen reporting the illicit relationship also noted that the teacher was too friendly with students and sometimes will dress inappropriately at school. The mother of two had recently divorced Chance Carmack, an amateur MMA fighter who'd completed basic training in the U.S. Army. On December the 8th of 2023, detectives visited the school to speak to Clifton Carmack, and she denied having any type of relationship with students outside of school. Law enforcement took her phone but had to wait on a warrant to unlock it. They eventually found incriminating messages that included explicit content shared by the teacher with the victim. By then, Clifton Carmack had left to visit family in Texas. She was arrested in Comal County and extradited to Missouri, where on January the 16th, she was indicted by a grand jury on multiple charges that included molestation, child endangerment, and furnishing adult material to a minor. Clifton Carmack's trial was scheduled for August of 2024. Also arrested and facing charges of child endangerment was the teenage victim's father, Mark Crichton. He was alleged to have known about the relationship and covered for the teacher and his son, even allowing them to see each other at his residence and in his presence. Number 6. Miley Connors. On the afternoon of December the 29th of 2021, Thames Valley Police in England received multiple reports of an SUV driving dangerously on the M40's hard shoulder. It would emerge that the driver, 37-year-old Miley Connors, was drunk behind the wheel and had a child in the passenger seat. He sped at over 100 miles per hour on the roadway and was caught on motorist dash cams, swerving in and out of traffic. Connors eventually lost control and crashed into the central reservation between junctions 9 and 8A, which sent his vehicle into a spin. Fortunately, the SUV didn't strike other cars. In spite of losing a tire, Connors kept driving and eventually stopped at the overbridge near Worming Hall. He and the child got out. A motorist then spotted Connors urinating against his car as the child ran up an embankment. After they found the SUV abandoned on the side of the motorway, the police elicited support from the National Police Air Service. A helicopter tracked the missing duo to a field nearby, and air cameras captured Connors on his knees, vomiting. The police arrested him and safeguarded the child, who was described as cold, wet, and muddy, but otherwise unharmed. It was reported that Connors could barely stand up upon being taken into custody. Law enforcement noted that even though injuries hadn't occurred, he could have easily taken several lives through his actions. Investigating Officer PC Amy Boughton was quoted as saying, "This was one of the worst pieces of driving I have ever seen," and characterizing the fact that a child was present in the vehicle as gut-wrenching. A jury unanimously found Connors guilty of 1 count each of dangerous driving and child neglect. On April the 12th of 2024, he was given a 2-year prison sentence, suspended for 2 years at Oxford Crown Court. Connors was additionally disqualified from driving for 2 years, ordered to do 250 hours of unpaid work, and fined £3,000. Number 5. Famous Richard. Leading up to the spring of 2023, drill rapper Famous Richard, a self-proclaimed member of the Chicago-based Black Disciples street gang, had become known on social media for various antics, some of which were perpetrated against law enforcement. The stunts typically involved him reaching for officers' holstered guns or taunting them. The 24-year-old rapper Richard Sharp, by his real name, was obstructing traffic with an unidentified individual in Queens, New York City on May the 12th of 2023. Cops told him to get out of the street, but Sharp reportedly threatened, "I'm going to take your pipe," referring to the officer's weapon. He was arrested on charges of making a terroristic threat, obstructing governmental administration, resisting arrest, menacing, and disorderly conduct. As he was released from a precinct, Sharp started filming on his cell phone. He tried to harass the cops, but they turned the tables on him, saying of the clout chaser, he was crying in our cells when his phone was taken. Following his release, Sharp went right back to pestering law enforcement for internet fame, but the crybaby story remained attached to his name. While in Times Square, he approached an officer telling him, "I'm King David," referring to David Barksdale, the founder of the Black Disciples who died in 1947. Unimpressed, the officer replied, "You're the guy that got arrested. You were crying in the cells. I remember that." In another video shot at a Midtown Manhattan precinct, an officer turned to Sharp and asked, "What's up, son? You were crying in the cells last week, right?" The clips went viral on TikTok. In December of 2023, Sharp was involved in an argument at a smoke shop in Manhattan over the price of the property and was reported to have flashed a gun before leaving. A criminal complaint was filed and he became wanted for robbery. The incident took place on December the 21st. The following day, Sharp approached Port Authority police officers in the 8th Avenue entrance of the Port Authority bus terminal port. While a companion was recording, Sharp was likely about to engage in his usual antics as he said to the officers, "Can I ask you all a question?" However, within seconds, Officer Bradley DeSalvo recognized Sharp as a wanted man and immediately placed him under arrest. Not knowing that he'd been recognized, the rapper was visibly confused and panicked, insisting that he only wanted to ask a question. As shown in a subsequently uploaded YouTube video, DeSalvo held him against a wall and handcuffed him. Other officers assisted in the arrest. In the moments that followed, Sharp started bellowing and screaming into the camera about King David and BD before going limp and forcing officers to carry his weight. He continuously taunted the cops, asking them about their wives and yelling, "This is making me more lit." The man, whose social media posts showed him flaunting stacks of cash and firearms, was charged with robbery in connection to the smoke shop incident. He pleaded not guilty and was expected back in court in the spring of 2024. Number 4. David Love. On January the 4th of 2024, a retired police officer from Kentucky was arrested on multiple charges stemming from him having relations with a teenager. The abuse had reportedly begun in October of the previous year, and aside from engaging in various intimate acts with the victim, 69-year-old David Roy Love also reportedly bought an unspecified adult toy for them to use during their encounters. The ex-cop admitted to the illegal relations, which weren't reported to have been forced, during a non-custodial interview. Love also confessed to having had illegal adult material on his personal tablet and sending it through Facebook Messenger and then deleting the content to hide the evidence. Following Love's arrest, his mugshot showed him with a bruised and battered face and with his head wrapped in gauze and bandages. It wasn't immediately clear how the man, who weighed over 220 pounds on a 6'2" frame, had suffered the injuries. A source told the New York Post that Love was a cancer sufferer and that his bruised up appearance in the mugshot was actually a side effect of the radiation treatment he'd been receiving. He faced several charges related to the abuse and evidence tampering. Number 3. Leonardo DiCaprio's inspiration. Martin Scorsese's 2013 movie The Wolf of Wall Street achieved commercial success and critical acclaim in no small part due to actor Leonardo DiCaprio's portrayal of Jordan Belfort, the real-life corrupt stockbroker upon which the motion picture was based. In a subsequent interview, DiCaprio, who received an Academy Award nomination for his performance, credited a YouTube video for inspiring a pivotal scene in the movie. Much like the real-life Belfort, DiCaprio's character becomes addicted to Quaalude, a hypnotic sedative. After taking too much of it, he loses control of his body and flails on the ground as he crawls to his Lamborghini and uses his foot to open the passenger door. DiCaprio claimed that watching a YouTube video called Drunkest Guy in the World on loop was the primary source of research for his choices in the scene. The 2009 viral clip showed a severely inebriated man stumbling into a mini market and attempting to grab a 12-pack of beer. He opened the fridge and used its door to secure himself as he reached inside and grabbed the pack. The man tried walking away, but as DiCaprio described it, his body doesn't quite work. He then dropped to the floor, still holding the beer pack, and flailed about for a few minutes as he struggled and failed to get up. He was eventually helped to his feet by other customers. His cinema-inspiring bad decisions would culminate in him nearly reaching the door, but then grasping at air as he tried to get a hold of the handle. The man stumbled backwards and tried to secure himself, but only managed to grab what appeared to be a plastic bowl off the coffee counter. He then bounced off some shelves and fell to the floor, still clutching the bowl. DiCaprio reported that he found the unknown man's single-mindedness compelling, noting he had one singular goal, one that was to get a beer out of the 7-Eleven, and it took him a half an hour. Today's topic was requested by Janita Driver 2023. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Sean and Charlie Howard. An English father-son duo was jailed for a combined 8 years at Woolwich Crown Court in January of 2018 following a smash and grab carried out on December the 28th of the previous year. 55-year-old Sean Howard and his son Charlie, aged 21, ambushed the guard after he'd collected take-ins from a shop in Sittingbourne, Kent. The duo pushed the guard to the ground, ripped a money box from his hands, and fled in a Mercedes van. Plate recognition technology tracked the vehicle 15 miles away from the scene of the crime to a holiday park in Laysdown, where Sean owned a caravan. He and Charlie were arrested that same day, and officers recovered all but £123 of the £10,000 they'd pilfered. The duo subsequently admitted robbery, and the older Howard was jailed for 5 years and 4 months, while his son was jailed for 2 years and 8 months. As you've already seen in this video, people can make some terrible decisions in their lives, but how bad can it get when you throw alcohol into the mix? Find out after number 1, because we're queuing up when getting lit goes wrong for you. Number 1. Gary and Diane Mansel. English couple Gary and Diane Mansel, aged 61 and 58, were jailed for 6 years each in the fall of 2023 after they were found guilty on multiple charges that stemmed from them pillaging the former's parents. In 2017, Gary's father, Fred, suffered a fall and was moved to a rehabilitation unit. His wife, Enid, had begun showing signs of dementia and moved in with Gary and Diane in Walton, Liverpool. The parents, both of whom were in their late 70s at the time, gave their son and his wife power of attorney over their estate and moved into an annex on the couple's property. Gary and Diane were already enjoying a comfortable living through his job as manager at the Jaguar Land Rover plant and her running a curtain company. Nevertheless, Messages exchanged between them indicated that they dreamt of becoming millionaires. Once in control of Fred and Enid's finances, they undersold the elderly couple's home for about £100,000. They then burned through their savings to support their lavish lifestyle, which included holidays to Jamaica, the Caribbean, and Cape Verde, as well as adding a £25,000 kitchen extension to their home. From her in-laws' savings, Diane spent thousands on dental work and bought 3 Chanel bags and 1 Louboutin bag. She also showed off on social media with a new Land Rover Discovery with a personalized license plate. Fred and Enid were only left with 28 pence in their account, and during the 3.5 years that they lived with their son and his wife, they were kept in relative isolation in the annex, barely left the property, and were only provided with meager meals. The couple took £218,138 from them, but after food and other costs were deducted, the fraud was valued at £117,000. Enid died before they were brought to justice, and Fred reported that he felt he no longer wanted to live because of how their only child had betrayed them. Gary and Diane were found guilty of fraud by abuse of position and money laundering. The sentencing judge stated he was disgusted by their actions, which he described as the most despicable display of greed, vanity, and selfishness. A shocking video captured a pregnant passenger violently attacking a Spirit Airlines employee at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Georgia. After she was told she couldn't board the plane because of her aggressive behavior, the fierce exchange transpired on April the 30th of 2023, after 29-year-old Pennsylvania woman Kay Maria Scott had gone up to the gate. Scott asked gate agents what was going on with her upcoming flight and started to threaten one of the airline employees, saying she would beat a bitch up if she didn't get on the plane. Airline employee Jasmine Rodden told her she would be denied boarding her flight due to her statements and actions. Consequently, Scott became even more enraged and charged at Rodden. Footage shows Scott pulling Rodden's hair and pushing her into a barrier, causing them to fall to the ground. She was subsequently seen on top of the employee, continuing the onslaught. Eventually, 4 onlookers pulled Scott away. Responding law enforcement surrounded her, at which point she yelled, I'm pregnant, before she was placed in handcuffs. Rodden and other witnesses told the arresting officers that Scott clearly smelled like alcohol, despite her own claim of being pregnant. Scott was taken into custody for simple assault and disorderly conduct and transported to the Clayton County Jail, where she was held on a $1,500 bond. Number 10. Alexander and Robert Mckel. Scottish man Alexander Mckel was jailed after admitting to killing a cyclist and burying his body on a country estate with the help of his twin brother. The cyclist, 63-year-old Tony Parsons, had been fatally knocked off his bicycle by a pickup truck near the Bridge of Orkney in Argyll and Bute in September of 2017. An intoxicated Alexander was behind the wheel of the pickup truck, and his twin brother Robert was a passenger. Instead of providing assistance and trying to save the man's life, the Mckel twins sped off, went and got another vehicle, and then returned to the scene to collect Parsons' lifeless body. They then hid the body in a stink pit on a remote estate and burned other evidence. Despite major searches by police, Scotland officers, rescue teams, K9 units, and air support units, as well as volunteer and repeated media appeals, Parsons' body was never found. The horrendous crime only came to light 3 years later, after Alexander confessed it to his then-girlfriend, who decided to take his story to the police. Alexander and Robert were arrested on December the 20th of 2020, and Parsons' remains were recovered a month later. 31-year-old Alexander was sentenced to 12 years of incarceration in August of 2023 after pleading guilty to culpable homicide. Robert was found guilty of attempting to defeat the ends of justice and was handed a 63-month jail sentence. Number 9. Mary Jane Carpenter. Iowa woman, Mary Jane Carpenter, was taken into custody by Des Moines police after she took her child to a bar while carrying a half-empty bottle of vodka. The incident took place on July the 27th of 2016, when the 25-year-old mother went to Miss V's Honky Tonk Island bar on Hubble Avenue, allegedly looking for a job. Witnesses said that when Carpenter arrived, she was already intoxicated. Her child was left unsupervised, running around and rolling on the floor. When the bartender tried to talk to her about the child, the woman slammed her drink and cussed at the bartender. At one point, she stumbled over her daughter's stroller, inadvertently kicking the child in the head. According to witnesses, when the woman left, a concerned patron followed her and the bartender called the police. The patron saw Carpenter starting to act erratically, running down the street while leaving the stroller with her child in it behind. The patron stayed with the child, and when officers arrived, they placed Carpenter in handcuffs. She became belligerent, claiming that the officers didn't have the right to arrest her. Before being placed in the police car, she begged, saying, "Please don't do this." Her breath test results later confirmed that she'd been drinking alcohol. Carpenter was taken into custody and police found the clear plastic bottle of vodka in the stroller. She was allowed to comfort her child in the back of a police car while waiting for a family member to arrive and take the child into their custody. Just when the dust appeared to be settling, Carpenter found a way to remove her handcuffs. When officers noticed, they removed the child from the back seat and Carpenter became aggressive and hostile. While trying to get the toddler back, she hit the child and an officer in the face. Ultimately, she was charged with child endangerment, no injury, assault on police officers, and public intoxication. Number 8. Ryan Danley Colum. A Florida teenager was facing multiple charges following a DUI hit-and-run crash on the evening of July the 22nd of 2020, during which 4 other teens were injured. The 4 victims had been attending a house party on Cypress Point Boulevard in Davenport. Polk County deputies were called to the location after receiving noise complaints. Upon their arrival, several partygoers began to quickly disperse. One of them, 16-year-old Ryan Daniel Colum, began driving away in a Kia Stinger and struck the 4 teens standing at the edge of the driveway. 3 of the teens suffered non-life-threatening injuries, but one of them got stuck and was dragged under the car as it continued traveling across driveways and lawns. According to investigators, the female victim was dislodged from the vehicle after being dragged for about 450 feet. She suffered multiple fractures, internal injuries, and losses of skin and muscle. The girl was flown to Arnold Palmer Hospital, and fortunately she survived. Colum was located 8 miles away and was arrested. Deputies said that the suspect showed signs of impairment and had a strong odor of alcohol on his breath. When he took breathalyzer tests, he consistently blew a .121 on 2 samples, which exceeded the legal limit for driving. He was transported to the Juvenile Assessment Center in Bartow. Records indicated that Colum later received a 6-year prison sentence after being convicted of felony driving under the influence, causing serious bodily harm, and 4 counts of misdemeanor DUI. Sheriff's officials also learned that the home where the party was held had been rented by a man from Corpus Christi, Texas. However, further investigation determined that the man's personal information was allegedly stolen by 18-year-old Mateo Pinzon Penagos and was used to secure the rental. In January of 2021, Penagos was arrested and booked into the Orange County Jail. He was charged with burglary, criminal use of personal identification, and allowing minors to drink alcohol at an open house party. Number 7. Caleb Kleiss. 20-year-old Caleb Kleiss from Clearwater, Florida, was arrested for driving under the influence and improper exhibition of a dangerous weapon on December the 12th of 2020. According to the arrest affidavit, a witness spotted Kleiss driving across the Memorial Causeway Bridge in a Volkswagen with the barrel of a rifle sticking out of the driver's side window. At one point, Kleiss allegedly held the gun up to his shoulder and pointed it out the window without firing a single bullet. Later that day, officers tracked down Kleiss in a parking lot near his residence. Officers found the rifle on the suspect's dashboard. It was identified as an AR-15, which had a full magazine and a bullet in the chamber. Kleiss was asked to perform a field sobriety test, which he failed. When he was given a breathalyzer test, it was determined that his blood alcohol concentration was nearly twice the legal limit for operating a vehicle. Upon being placed under arrest, Kleiss told the officers that he had the AR-15 with him for self-defense because he was paranoid. He claimed to have seen crazy stuff since he moved from Alabama to Florida. Subsequent information indicated that Kleiss was released from Pinellas County Jail on a $900 bond the following day. Number 6. Andrew Tosh. At an airport in London, England, Essex police arrested a man who officers said was so inebriated he did not know which country he was in. Andrew Tosh was on a flight from Glasgow, Scotland to Dalaman, Turkey. On May the 6th of 2015, the 34-year-old reportedly became aggressive and assaulted a female cabin crew member, causing the flight to be diverted to Gatwick Airport. He also acted aggressively towards other passengers, yelling profanities. When the plane landed, he had to be carried off by police officers. Police body cam footage showed Tosh asking where they were. When an officer told him they were at Gatwick Airport, Tosh yelled, "Gatwick? F off." A hood was later placed on the man's head to stop him from spitting at the officers. On June the 16th of 2015, Tosh was sentenced to 9 months in prison after he admitted assaulting the cabin crew member, threatening behavior, and being drunk on an aircraft. Additionally, he was ordered to register as an offender. Number 5. Sierra Newell and Briana LaFoe. On September the 14th of 2023, police responded to a drinking establishment on Seabreeze Boulevard in Daytona Beach, Florida, on reports of 2 intoxicated women throwing a baby in the air. The 2 women, later identified as 20-year-old Sierra Newell and 19-year-old Briana LaFoe, were caught on cell phone video and surveillance footage throwing the baby back and forth a couple of feet apart. According to law enforcement, Newell was on crutches at the time and was threatening to hit bystanders who tried to intervene. LaFoe confronted a witness who was recording the incident as it unfolded. That's when she allegedly flipped the baby upside down and grabbed him by his ankles. She also approached the witness with Newell's crutch and struck her on the arm. Police said responding officers took Newell and LaFoe into custody. According to an arrest affidavit, they were both charged with child abuse, while the latter was facing an additional battery charge. It was unclear who the baby belonged to, but he was taken to a local hospital due to red marks on his back. A mark on his X-ray potentially indicated a broken arm. Fox News reported that after medical treatment, the baby was released. As of the latest updates, LaFoe's bond was set to $3,500, while Newell had been released from custody. Number 4. Zachary Paulson. On March the 31st of 2022, a pickup truck collided into an SUV at the intersection of 192nd and F Street in Omaha, Nebraska, shortly before 11 p.m. The SUV rolled and caught fire, killing its driver, 37-year-old Sarah Zimmerman, her unborn baby, and her passenger, Amanda Shook, aged 38. The driver of the pickup truck, 22-year-old Zachary Paulson, suffered serious injuries after the crash and was taken to a hospital. He was later held in Sarpy County Jail in lieu of $1 million. According to police crash investigators, Paulson had gone to several bars, where he had a number of drinks over the course of 5 hours before driving home. The crash data recorder of Pauluson's pickup truck indicated that he was going 102 miles per hour at the time of the collision. Investigators found no indicators of the pickup truck even braking before hitting the SUV. It was determined that Pauluson's blood alcohol content was twice the legal driving limit, and he also tested positive for cannabis. In November of 2022, Paulson pleaded no contest to 2 counts of motor vehicle homicide as the result of driving under the influence and 1 count of motor vehicle homicide resulting in the death of an unborn child. He received a 32-year prison sentence and will be eligible for parole after serving 16 years. Number 3. Allison Wellen. "I'm Jack Sparrow," shouted Allison Wellen as she stole a 45-foot ferry along the River Dart in Devon, England. Wellen had consumed an unhealthy amount of pear cider and eaten a poisonous hallucinogenic plant when she undid the mooring ropes of the Dart Princess double-decker ferry in the early hours of September the 10th of 2011. She then boarded the vessel together with a friend. Moments later, Wellen thought she was having a seizure, so she called emergency services. Ambulance workers arrived at the scene and found the woman rambling and severely intoxicated. Her friend, Tristram Locke, became belligerent and pushed one of the responding ambulance workers. Consequently, the medics called the police and went to their vehicle. While waiting for the police, they noticed that the ferry was drifting away from shore and heard Wellen yelling that she was a pirate. The ferry subsequently bashed into other boats like a pinball machine. According to witnesses, it finally came to a rest an hour later and Wellen was arrested. She'd caused more than $2,300 worth of damage to the vessel as well as damage to other boats. The 51-year-old was sentenced to 122 days behind bars after she pleaded guilty to aggravated vehicle taking. Records indicated that Locke was fined $150 for assaulting the ambulance technician. Today's topic was requested by Chris Day 5079. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Toston David Lman. After California man Toston David Lman was pulled over on January the 1st of 2018 for speeding along Interstate 90, law enforcement found a dead woman in his vehicle. The 30-year-old was spotted in Spearfish, South Dakota, driving a Honda CR-V at more than 100 miles per hour. A trooper attempted to stop the vehicle, but Lman didn't pull over. The trooper gave chase, and the suspect was apprehended in Rapid City after a 50-mile pursuit. The vehicle had come to a stop after troopers used spike strips to destroy both of its front tires. According to Trooper Jeremy Bygert, Lman subsequently tried to flee on foot but was pulled from a chain-link fence and placed under arrest. Bygert said that the man smelled of alcohol, and a breath test revealed that his blood alcohol level was 0.142, which is above the legal limit to operate a vehicle. Upon inspecting Lman's vehicle, the troopers found not only prescription bottles and the container that smelled of alcohol, but also the lifeless body of a woman later identified as the suspect's mother, Michelle Nanette Walsh, aged 58. Lman was arrested and initially charged with aggravated eluding and drunk driving. Autopsy results revealed that Walsh had died of hemorrhage of the anterior neck muscles and blunt trauma to her head. Lman had allegedly strangled Walsh in Palm Springs, California, sometime between the evening of December the 30th of 2017 and the early morning hours of the following day. On January the 8th, Lman was charged with murder in California's Riverside County after he admitted to choking his mother. South Dakota authorities reportedly dropped the local charges so Lman could quickly face the murder charge in California. In October of 2020, Lman pleaded guilty to murder and was immediately sentenced to life in state prison with the possibility of parole after serving 25 years. Number 1. Chloe Haynes. On June the 22nd of 2019, two RAF Typhoon fighter jets scrambled to intercept an Airbus A321 around 45 minutes into its flight from Stansted, England to Dalaman, Turkey, after a female passenger started going berserk. 25-year-old Englishwoman Chloe Haynes had been drinking heavily from a 7-ounce bottle of gin stashed in an overhead locker. According to The Sun, Haynes was screaming, punching, singing, and crying. She then started to try opening the exit door and screamed, "I'm going to kill everyone," threatening other passengers that they would all die. As she continued her rampage, one of the cabin crew members attempted to calm Haynes down and was scratched in the process. Other passengers intervened and pinned Haynes down to the ground. In the meantime, the plane was diverted and two fighter jets escorted the plane back to Stansted, where Essex police arrested the woman. In the aftermath, Jet 2 banned her from flying with the airline for life and she was fined $106,000. A spokesman for the airline said that the financial penalty would cover the price of airport charges for new landing slots, price of fuel, and providing accommodation for delayed passengers. Haynes later admitted that she didn't remember what had transpired during the flight because she blacked out after mixing medication with alcohol. In February of 2020, Haynes was sentenced to 2 years in prison after pleading guilty to endangering an aircraft and assault by beating. Thanks for watching. Would you rather find out that you were living in a simulation or that aliens are real? Let us know in the comments section below.